All right. Welcome, everybody, to today's installment of the Not Just Basketball podcast. I'm your host, Nick Beauchesne. Joining me this morning is Troy Barnies. Troy has been playing professional basketball for the past 9 years. And before that, he was a 4-year contributing member of the University of Maine Orono basketball program, including a first-team all-conference nod his senior year in 2011. And he preceded that college career with his stint at the Auburn High School, Edward Little High School in Auburn, Maine, where he tore up the Maine high school basketball scene back in the mid to late 2000s, including the Maine Mr. Basketball 2007, Gatorade Player of the Year 2007, and a bunch of other individual accolades along the way. But if there's anything I missed, Troy, feel free to chime in as we go through this. But if you could pick up in terms of where you're at basketball-wise now.
Oh, I don't think you missed anything. It's basically summed up saying old guy from Maine.
Yeah,
old basketball player from Maine.
You're old enough to play basketball against me. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. No, I mean, everyone knows right now that because of the global pandemic, basketball in a lot of sports, basically all sports, is kind of on hold at the moment. So, like, my life is basically on hold because it's my full-time job,
Yeah. And
so
full-time job as a professional basketball player in Russia right now, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, that was my last stop where I was this year. My last stop was in Russia, and I was there for about 2 months, a little over 2 months. And because our season in Russia was canceled, I had to sign my termination with the team, as many players did. And then the season was canceled, and I had to come home. So I'm no longer with the team. I'm a free agent, back again, waiting to see what happens for the following season.
Looking to get ready for another professional basketball season?
Yep, I'm waiting to see. Like, right now, we have to wait to see what leagues are going to do over there. What are they going to do for starting late, maybe starting on time with no fans? No one knows. Mm-hmm. Basically, I think in the next 2 to 4 weeks, the NBA is going to decide if they're going to resume or not. And I think all leagues around that are going to kind of base their options off of what the NBA does. That's what I would have to guess.
Sure, it's almost like everybody looks for guidance to the biggest entity in basketball.
Exactly, and I just saw Adam Silver was talking about in the next 2 to 4 weeks they're gonna definitely decide whether to resume the season or not. So, like, I think right after that, I think leagues over in Europe are gonna start deciding what they're gonna do for either the end of some seasons over there. I mean, my season's done regardless. I won't be going back. But, like, some leagues are still trying to play. There's the Spanish leagues, the Greek leagues, there's Serbian league. There's some leagues that really want to try to finish out their season this year. Mm-hmm. So they're going to see what happens. They might cancel, they might not. But I think all leagues will be finished this year, and then everyone kind of just, wash their hands and get ready for next season if that's the case. So I'm just kind of waiting at the moment.
It's such a unique, unprecedented situation, I'm sure, for you in your career, but you're just one example of a whole society's worth of people that lives and livelihoods have been put on hold and big old question marks in the way now.
Yeah, nothing sucks more than losing your job because of the pandemic. Obviously, it's kind of rough, but then also realizing that you're not an essential worker.
You're an entertainer.
Yeah, pretty much.
Professional, though.
Yeah.
I'd have to say, all things considered, you've had one of the cooler careers of anybody in Maine in terms of basketball and how long it's lasted. Because you're old. And the fact that people are still paying you to play basketball is pretty cool.
I know. It's pretty cool. Like, I come back and I see all these kids, like, from high school going to college, playing. I see these kids that I've seen, like, on social media. They're, like, signing with, like, Division III schools, Division I schools, Wall. Maywin from Edward Little, he just signed to UMaine, so he's going to be kind of taking the same footsteps as me. Like seeing all these kids move up, and then also seeing like some of the guys that I know that are in college right now, trying to play professional, and I'm just like, I've been done that for almost a decade now. So being 31, to kind of look back and be like, holy crap, like my career's been so long, and I never expected it to be this long.
Now, I'm going to ask a question I already know the answer to, but do you see opportunities with your experience to make a difference in the lives of these kids and young adults who have dreams of playing basketball? And how do you?
Yeah, for sure. There's one of the main reasons. I mean, obviously, I love coming home after all my seasons. Maine is the number one spot for me. Like, always come home, and during that time, I usually try to involve myself with basketball as much as possible because I want Maine basketball to know that it's possible. You know, I know it's very rare to be a professional hooper from Maine, and I'm one of very few. I'm sorry, but like it is possible. And if you put yourself in the right situations and work hard enough, you definitely will have an opportunity if it presents. You know, so coming back, trying to work at camps, doing individual work with kids that ask, going around doing clinics at like hoop camp, or any high school head coach asked me to come in and work with their kids during the summer, which is obviously on hold because of everything going on now, but that's normally what I do. I try to do my best, you know, not just working with the kids, but kind of giving them an example of like what drills, what mindset they need to have going into their next season, or looking into the future.
Can you describe a little bit about what you mean by what mindset and what it goes into that?
Well, like one of the main things, I always work with kids, and I work with John Shea. John Shea is going to be a junior at Edward Little this year. He
State champion, stud.
Yep, state champion this year. Him and other kids that I've worked with in the past year or two, one of the main issues is like the individual workouts that we do. So I'll be in the gym with these guys, and if I'm going through the workout or not, either I lead by example and show them what you have to do to kind of push yourself, or kind of explain to them. The one thing is that a lot of kids are just kind of going through the motions during workouts. You know, you're not supposed to be in the gym for 3 hours working, you know, going 100%. That's just impossible. You can't. So if you break down your workout for an hour, hour and a half, and you go hard the entire time, then that's what you're getting. You'll get the most out of it. So I'm trying to explain and show that, like, if I'm going to go do a drill where I'm coming off 2 cones off like a stagger screen, or using a curl screen or whatever, you're going to go 100% game-like speed during that one time that you go and take your shot game speed, and then then you jog back in line, or you jog back to your spot. Like, you have to go 100%. You have to translate every drill you do individually into a game-like situation. And a lot of kids aren't doing that. There's, you know, going in, shooting around, chasing the ball, doing some ball handling. And yeah, it's all good. It really is. I'm not saying stop that, but I'm saying, like, if you want your game to translate from all the work that you put in into an actual game-like situation, then you're going to have to do it in practices and workouts. You just have to. And that's a mindset that, like, young kids don't have. And don't get me wrong, I didn't have that mindset either, but I also had a lot of people help me on the way.
Yeah.
Along the way, a lot. And one of the biggest things is I saw guys that were older than me, college guys, or if I was a sophomore in high school, I saw seniors, they were going hard through those drills. And I'm like, okay, well, they're leading by example, and I'm seeing what they're doing. That's what I have to do, you know?
And it's interesting how you talk about being able to see these examples and then realize the importance of what they're showing you, and then adapt it to what you're doing. And there were probably 50, 100 kids that also saw these things happening and either didn't fully get the message or didn't commit it as entirely as it sounds like you do. And I've seen at hoop camp going 100% in pickup. It's like we're not doing anything half cocked here.
Yeah, and the one thing, you brought up hoop camp. It's a perfect example. I'll use this. I worked at, I as like you, we've worked at hoop camp for many, many years, like many years. And like obviously I've continued my playing career, so I continue to work out and work on my game every day, all day basically. So when I worked at hoop camp, and I still do, but when I go there and I'll say I'm a coach and I have an hour downtime where
Before you get into this, Troy, can you tell the audience what is hoop camp? Like, what I know.
yeah, hoop camp is a summer basketball camp for kids and basically all ages from like second grade all the way up to senior in high school. And you, it's a not so much of a team camp, but it's a camp where you bring in your kid or whoever you want to bring in at the age group, and you get placed on a team in a cabin at hoop camp, and you're replaced with a coach and a counselor. And basically, the camp works on individual skills, team skills, and plays games throughout the entire week. And it's pretty competitive towards the end of the week into the playoffs. And it really gives a good basketball atmosphere on an outdoor courts, like on the side of a lake in Maine, which is really
Beautiful,
nice.
pleasant lake right on the shore. This compound that they've been doing it since way before we were born.
Yeah, 30, 40 years. I don't know exactly how many years, but they've been doing it for a very long time, and they've been doing it for so long because of how successful they've been. And it's a really amazing camp. And the number one thing about the camp, it's not like a super competitive camp. Like if your kid has never played basketball before, or he just wants to try it out, or maybe even just get away from home for a week, it's a perfect camp to do that because it's not just basketball. They'll do a lot of fun games. They'll bring you out on the lake and you can go swimming. They play a bunch of different games. Like don't get me wrong, it's 100% a basketball camp, but there's also other activities that they give you to kind of keep your mind off of just, that certain thing. So it's a great camp.
I think you said it perfectly, not just basketball. Well done.
Yeah. So like you and I, like I said before, you and I have worked the camps, and what I was saying was when I have like a hour or two off from like having any responsibilities as a coach or babysitter basically, I'll get my workouts in. Obviously it's a full day of work. You are with the kids 24/7 basically until they fall asleep. So during the day I'll have an hour and I'll go work out down at one of the courts that are open.
Yeah.
I'll set up my drills, I'll set up chairs, I'll set up cones, and I'll do my workouts. And a lot of kids that don't have practice or don't have games or don't have anything going on, they'll be watching me. And it's not like I'm putting on a show for them. I'm actually putting in the work for myself. But they'll be seeing me do what I do in my workouts. And then during the day, I'm very like sociable with these kids throughout the week as it is. They'll be asking me questions, and I'll see them in their free time doing the same thing on their own. So like sometimes kids need to see it. Sometimes kids need to see like someone do those certain things to get an idea of what they need to do. Sometimes they need to be told, but like I like how that's like very prominent in camps that I go to.
Absolutely. One more part of demonstrating those drills and those workouts, you have that audience of the kids at the camps, but also you've got another group with the coaches that come and are showing up to these places as like students of the game, still trying to pick up on things and get better. And you get to build the relationships with these coaches as you work during these summer camps. Can you talk a little bit about that aspect?
Yeah, so there's a cabin that all the coaches stay at, and we talk basketball the whole time. We'll be just chilling up there talking basketball, and it's great because I think a lot of the guys, most of them are older than me, very experienced coaches from all around Maine. We just kind of talk about what situations they've been through, funny stories, whatever the case may be. But a lot of the time we'll talk about basketball, obviously. And I like being part of those conversations because I'm kind of the outsider giving them different point of views because I've basically played basketball all around the world. So I've seen a lot. And they asked me, what's the difference between European basketball and American? How are your practices and all that stuff? And we kind of compare. And it's really good because I'll get notes and ideas from them at their specific level, whether it's high school, college, middle school, doesn't matter. And then they'll get ideas from me. And we kind of branch off of that and try to, expand our basketball knowledge in the best way possible. So it's awesome. I love it.
Do you see yourself after, at some point your professional basketball career ends, do you see yourself coaching down the road?
For sure.
You do?
100%. Like I've invested my entire career in basketball. I've done everything I could to like get better in this sport, and I've been fortunate enough to be playing an extra 10 years plus in the sport. So I've invested quite a bit, and I know too much, and I enjoy it still way too much to just retire, stop playing, and get a normal job, because I think I could really contribute to a basketball program and help at any level, because I've seen a lot of different basketball, like a lot. I've learned a lot. I've been through thousands of plays. I've played thousands of games. There's nothing better than getting experience than kind of getting your hands dirty and doing it yourself. So I think I would have a pretty good head start, and my resume looks pretty good for when I retire at some point. I would love to coach.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about coaching, and probably one of the reasons why you see yourself coaching down the road is the impact that you can have on kids, and the ability to continue passing along this gift of basketball. I think that's one of the coolest things about the sport, is that it exists beyond the individual, and people can share it with each other, and then people can learn from each other, but the game just goes everywhere. And can you talk a little bit about some of the coaches along the way that have made a difference in your life, and why?
Yeah. It's so funny you say that, because the other day obviously we're all bored at this point with the quarantine, but I was on my phone in my notes, and I was writing down names of coaches that have influenced me throughout my career. I don't know why I was doing it. I just was bored, and I took 5 minutes and started writing down names. And like, obviously the number one name, and it will be forever, is Mike Adams. He's the head coach at Edward Little High School now. He's won 2 out of the last 3 championships, the last 3 years, state championships. He was my head coach for 4 years when I was at Edward Little, and he's still there rocking the program at Edward Little. He's definitely number one. He's worked with me since the day I literally started playing organized basketball, and he's been with me for 15, 20 years, working out, giving me guidance, being my number one role model. So Mike Adams for sure is a guy that's influenced me at a high level. He's definitely number one. Then I've had coaches, obviously my college coaches, Doug Leichner, Coach Woodward, Ted Woodward. These guys put me in a position to be able to play Division I basketball, and they've, molded my game as much as possible for the 4 years I was at UMaine. There's so many people that I could list that have put me in great position to get to where I'm at right now. But the thing
Let's
is,
take a zoom in, if you don't mind the pun on zooming in. But let's take a look at Coach Adams, Edward Little, and that he was the one you said first. And Coach Adams is known throughout the state of Maine as one of the real exemplars of how to do it the right way, program wide. And as a result, as you said, 2 out of 3 last championships. You were there from 04 to 07 as a varsity player, right?
Yep.
And
07. No, I'm sorry, 03 to 07.
03 to 07. Sorry. Yeah, there we go.
So I was there. I started playing basketball at like 7th grade, like organized basketball in middle school. I wasn't like very good, but I was athletic. I was talented. I figured out sports pretty fast, like any sport that I played. So I got taller. Long story short, I started working on my game a lot more in 8th to 9th grade. And Coach Adams eyed me and kind of put time with me, and knew that the potential was there. So he kind of took me under his wing going into the high school, and I made varsity as a freshman, which I ended up playing against you quite a bit.
Year. My career was ending as Troy's was beginning, but that's okay.
Yep. And then we basically didn't look back from there. My 9th grade, I made varsity, and I played quite a bit as a freshman. And I think at that point, when I was at that like such a high level for my age, that I kind of realized that this was a lot more serious than just playing pickup outside, like with a bunch of guys. So I learned a lot, and I was very serious about it. So after that point, I realized that like this is definitely going to be something for me. So I kind of took it from there.
Little side story about Coach Adams, if you will, here. Coach Adams accepted the Edward Little head coaching job in 2002, which was my sophomore year, which probably was your 7th grade season.
Yep.
And he had left his position as the varsity assistant coach at Lewiston High School. And I had a real unique relationship that I thought was developing between the varsity assistant coach, Coach Adams, and myself, who, as a freshman entering sophomore year, I had visions of being the starting point guard on varsity, which I eventually became. But Coach Adams accepts the job at Edward Little, across the bridge from my hometown, Lewiston, which I still rock proudly. JV head coach, varsity assistant coach at the Blue Devils. We're on the come up, watch out. But Coach Adams leaves in 2002 to accept that job at Edward Little. And I look back still to this day, like so sad that I didn't get to work with him and that he proceeded to kick my ass with Jake Robertson, Nick Lawler, and Jeff Scammon for 3 years, and then my career was over. But the strongest memory I have of Coach Adams is me as a freshman leaving a fall league game or a summer league game. It might have been late summer, playing up varsity, sitting on the bench, and then riding back in Coach Adams' Jeep with him and my varsity coach, Coach Fuller. And I'm sitting back there in the back of the Jeep. The top won't work and it's pouring rain. And I don't care at all because I'm just like trying to be a sponge here and ingratiate myself to these young coaches that I can tell are leaders and that I'm ready to give everything for. And it was a memory I still have crystal clear, that whole ride. And it's been a long time, almost 20 years since, but that type of impact that Coach Fuller, Coach Adams had on myself and our whole program, where it was like, okay, look at us as leaders and we're going to show you ways, if you're willing to do everything that is required to maximize your abilities. And that sort of trust and belief that these coaches instill in their players is such an underrated impact that you can have on someone's life.
Yeah, for sure. And the number one thing they're trying to do is you obviously help you be a better person because you shape and mold yourself the most in high school and college. Like you figure yourself out. So like they're trying to help you through that as well as the basketball standpoint. And the one thing that a lot of kids think is like, oh, everyone has a chance to be, play college basketball. Everyone has a chance to be a professional athlete. And yeah, that's true. But to a point, you need to kind of maximize your potential. Like you said, you have to. And some people's potential is Division III. Some people's maximum is, Division I. Some don't even play college basketball. There's a very low percentage. So it's like, if you want to continue your career, if you want to continue to get better, you have to maximize yourself and see how far you can go. Like for me, I'll use myself as an example. I've been fortunate, like I said, enough to maximize. I've gotten better every year. I still get better. I'm 31. I'm playing professionally for 9 years and I'm still learning and getting better. Like there's no excuse for not learning certain ways, and like you have to get out of your own head with a lot of things. Like for me, I was a post player in high school. I did, but I was a post player, and then I ended up being a post player in college. Now I'm a guard overseas. I had to completely transform my game to be able to play at the highest level possible, and I did that. Now I'm a three. I never shot threes in college, Like I played my own game at the time, but I never like settled on just being that one kind of player.
Sure.
And I always everything. And kids nowadays need to do the same. You need to realize that there's so much things you can work on, and you need to identify what your game is like and how you can take it to the next level. And they do that. Those coaches do the best they can to put you in those spots.
Absolutely. And it also kind of is interconnected with the idea of role development as an individual and as a part of a team, with you talking about some people's ceiling is professionally, some might be D1 or D3, and some might be a big rebound in a prelim game in the fourth quarter because they've put in the work to box out weak side. And
Yep.
a big sequence of defensive stops where the guards who've been drilling how to run the 2-3 trap make a couple good plays in a row that swings the tide of a big game. And
Yep.
that sort of identification of roles and how you were able to change your role, but how in general basketball provides opportunities to either succeed or fail with your individual and team role in every aspect, whether it's a rebound or an assist or a turnover or a game or a season or a career, like
Yep.
role development. And how does that apply, and how do coaches impact that, Troy?
They, well, what do you mean? Like, what? Give me one more example.
Yeah, so there can be a team that has 3-point shooter that you maximize in the corner to get them
Right.
their shot in their spot, and they may also have tough offensive rebounders that
Yeah.
fill their role. How do coaches and players work together to like maximize their role on a team?
Right. A lot of the time, you figure out real quick on who's good at what.
Yeah.
Okay. Most of the time, coaches will kind of play the players that are good at specific things that they need at the time. So you'll have two guys that are just like they crash the boards consistently, and they're very good at it, and they get the ball for you. They're good defensive rebounders. Those guys will play. You got on-ball defenders, guys that just don't get beat very much. Have good feet, like guys that are just good at defense in general. They will play. You'll have shooters, obviously, that you need on the offensive end. You'll have guys that can handle the ball. There's guys at every position that you're going to need to play. So that they'll maximize their talent and their skills and their abilities for those positions, but they'll also work on the things that they need you to be able to do. So you got a point guard that's like taller than most point guards. You're going to want to work on like how they can slip in and get offensive rebounds. You're going to want to see how they can box out the big man getting away trying to get an offensive rebound. Like there's little things that you need to work on with each player to get them out of their own head that they're not just good at one thing. They need to be good at everything, or at least some.
Absolutely.
So that's the main thing. It's like a lot of kids, and especially college kids as well, they think it's like, oh, I'm a good ball handler, I'm a good on ball screen guy, I can shoot, I can attack the rim, I'm a slasher. Yeah, you're good at those things, but what about, like you said, help side defense? Are you on the right spots at the right time always, or are you just half-assing it?
Mm-hmm.
There's a big difference, and coaches see that, and they'll see if there's more players on the team not doing those kind of things. They'll definitely put the time in for all the players to do that.
Absolutely.
Like that's their job, is to find out the weaknesses, work on the weaknesses for each player, and then kind of with the team all together kind of do the same.
Mm-hmm. How does communication work in that environment, and what is the role and value of communication in a basketball?
See, so this is the thing. Like I'm learning, so I'm gonna be like I've been playing for a long time. I know I'm gonna be the kind of coach that at some point when I'm coaching, I'm gonna kind of just show them. But I also want to be the kind of coach that can explain to them without showing them, and then allow them to do those drills. Like I want to be able to explain a drill without having to physically show them how to do it. And I understand there's 50, 60, 70-year-old coaches that can't do what I do. So they have to be their abilities have to be able to explain how to do to kids. And that's a huge communication.
Absolutely.
So coach, you want to learn how to do both, kind of, if you're physically able to, or if you can mentally able to tell them. So like with the communication, I feel like there always obviously has to be discipline with these kids and explaining to them what they have to do and what they're doing wrong, and have these kids pay attention 24/7. You just have to. But like most of the time, these kids have to be able to pay attention and have that capacity to have an open mind with a lot of things, because you don't know everything. I'm a 9-year pro, 31 years old, and I still don't know everything. You know what I mean? Like it never stops. So you have to be able to listen and learn from everything.
and instill that trust and that belief in the players, right? Like when you were talking
Yeah,
about Coach Adams, I'm sure it didn't take long when you were a player to say, okay, what wall do you need me to run through today, coach? Like,
exactly. Exactly. That's the way to explain it. Like, if you can tell, like, as a coach or another player watching another play, you can just tell who wants to get better and who doesn't. You can just tell in their face. You know, a lot of coaches will be like, this is the game day. You got to have the mindset, like, be hungry, be ready to go, blah, blah, blah. And you can just see it in your players' faces. And even at the professional level, the coaches can tell if the team is ready to play that game or not.
sure.
Especially warm-ups. If people are just, going through the motions and warm-ups before a game and stuff, you can tell that the mindset of the team is not there.
One last thing I wanted to circle back on with that in terms of how coaches can see what's going on with players is the value of communication, not just from coach to player, but like team wide, and how being able to communicate on the fly just as natural instinct as a team that's on the same line together is a great weapon that I don't think gets used enough at any level. And the teams that communicate best are oftentimes the teams that are the best. Would you agree, and why?
I agree. The reason why is because I think you have to, as a coach, you have to put them in the most situations that allow them to speak without you being a mentor there 24/7, being at the eye in the sky. Like, you'll see a lot of, like, successful high school teams being good because these kids have played with each other for a long time.
Yeah.
And the reason that is because they played with each other even without the coach being there 24/7. They played in pickup games. They played in AAU team, like leagues in the summertime. They played where they were able to, give each other shit during the summertime without anyone kind of being there telling them not to or telling them to. And then they've also been in the organized atmosphere where, like, they got coaches, they got, like, people working with them, explaining to them what they have to do. So, like, the best way that you can get your kids to communicate with each other is kind of just let them play. Let them play outside of, the organized practices or in practices. Just let them play. Let them figure out each other. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And do leaders rise to the occasion in that, in terms of?
For sure. You're going to tell who's going to be organizing, the 5-on-5 situations, who's going to be the one talking the most, and who's going to be giving one of their teammates crap for not being able to be at the right spot at the right time because they're being lazy. Like, there's all these little things that, like, you have to be able to do as a leader. And the one thing you can tell is, like, you can't take it personally, like, on the court. Like, I still get it now. Like, if I'm not in the right spot in the right time, like, if I get shit from someone on my team, like, I'm gonna obviously be mad at myself for either half-assing it or just not realizing that I was doing something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I don't take it personally. It's not like I'm gonna hate that person.
Sure.
Like, you just, at the competitive level of sports, you just can't. You have to have, like, a filter in your head where that this is what it is between the lines, basically.
There's a fine line, though, I think, when teammates communicate with each other, between, like, being a leader and having the line of communication where there's high expectations, and then just being a critic. And there are some teammates who can communicate and are talkative, but they're always harping on the negative, and they're not looking to, like, constructively criticize a teammate so that the next time they don't make that mistake that they just made. And
Yeah.
how I think that goes into a lot of, like, that camaraderie you're talking about teammates playing with each other, getting to know each other so that they can respect each other.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And a lot of different personalities don't clash. They
Yeah.
just don't. Sometimes you'll have teams that are phenomenal players, but they're just not working well together. They don't care about anyone besides themselves, and it just doesn't work. You'll have super talented teams at any level that just don't work. You'll see, like, NBA teams. You'll see, like, oh, these players, you got 4 of the best players on the same team, but it won't work out. You remember when James Harden and Russell Westbrook were on the same team? Those dudes are players in the league right now. They were on the same team. It just didn't work out because they just didn't work well together.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was communication-wise or the X and O's part of the basketball, like, it just depends on the situation.
Yeah. and you see teams that do work well together, that have this connection between coach and players at all times, that consistently do rise to that occasion. And you see it at all levels. I just wanted to finish this off here, Troy, and I really appreciate you joining me again with a little bit of thoughts about what we can do here going forward with the various platforms that you and I and others of our ilk have to like continue making an impact in the lives of kids at this point in time, with all the challenges we have, and what you're going to lean on and going forward to help out.
So with everything going on now, like what we have to look forward to and how things are going to be, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, and what sort of roles we as community members and potential leaders will have to help our communities.
Well, as soon as the restrictions for us start like leaving way for us, basically giving us opportunity to work more, it's just tough because our situation is really tough. Me being as a player, you as a coach, we have to be with people to do what we do. We just have to. So like I said, when restrictions start being a little bit less than what they are now, being able to work one-on-one with kids that want to get better. Sometimes at kids' ages where where they, you have to wake them up. You have to like tell them what to do. They have to, you have to kind of force them to do it. Like you're going to have to start building like this situation where you're kind of forcing kids to come in even if they don't want to. Because a lot of people's motivation is very down right now because there's nothing, like a lot of kids don't have anything to wake up to. There's no like school. Yeah, there's not much school anymore. At least all day school. There's no after school activities. There's nothing right now. So like I think the priority is to get motivation back into these kids. And some will have the ones that are hungry, but the ones that don't, you'll definitely have to work on that with them. Because I'll even speak for myself. Like it's hard to get motivation to do a home workout now, or get to a court that I can use to like start working on things for my following season. Like it's tough, I understand, but like you got to know why and what you're doing, basically.
And it's going to be crucial here for individuals and state of Maine basketball and basketball in general, for people to continue finding ways to grow as players and as people. And it's going to be a real challenge, but I'm glad to be at least on board with searching for solutions and having conversations like this where people can start opening up lines of communication and start collaborating and just bouncing things off each other to take people out of some of the inward looking natural tendencies and try to solve solutions going forward outwardly, is going to be a real exciting, challenging, and opportunity. And thank you again.
Yep. Yeah, of course.
Let's continue being in touch, and we'll see how things go going forward. I wish you all the best of luck. Keep killing it. This is NJB podcast, Not Just Basketball. Troy Barnies, Nick Beauchesne signing out.